Work is underway in Montreal today and for the next 2 weeks on ways to save the planet. This comes as the COP-15 Global Biodiversity Conference looks to secure a plan to protect 30% of the Earth's land and water. Negotiators from nearly 200 countries are being asked to hammer out an agreement to begin to restore damaged ecosystems and halt further losses by 2030. Nature itself can help to prevent devastating losses due to climate change. It can absorb carbon dioxide that is contributing to global warming and reduce the effects of extreme weather. Aaron Jacob of the Nature Conservancy of Canada says the need for the 30% target is well supported by 50 years of scientific research. Well, with us now to discuss the conference and its goals is Mr. Jay Ritchlin, Nature Director and Director General for Western Canada at the David Suzuki Foundation. Mr. Ritchlin, welcome to Forum Daily.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you.
So, as we said, the goal of this conference is to ratify an agreement to preserve 30% of the world's land and water. So, can you tell us a little bit more about what that would look like?
Sure. Well, I really want to start out by emphasizing that the global biodiversity framework is much more than that. The protection of 30% of ocean and terrestrial land ecosystems is incredibly important, but it's a baseline from which we need to work to restore other ecosystems and to manage the way humans act in the areas that aren't protected as well. And those are really big parts of this conference. What it would look like is areas that are highly protected from industrial extraction. So no, industrial forestry or mining or really destructive fisheries in those areas. They would allow traditional uses for Indigenous people in many cases, and that's one of the big things being worked on now. And then we would have a system of ecosystem-based management outside the protected areas that meant that we weren't just running down our nature bank account, if you will, outside the protected areas and pretending that we were doing okay just by having 30% protected. That won't be enough. It's incredibly important, but it won't be enough by itself.
Sounds like a lot of initiatives to consider here. Now, we know the G7 has already agreed to this 30% target. So, how likely are we to see a global consensus at this conference?
I think we have a good chance. I think the wealthy nations need to agree to support the developing world or the global south, however you want to term it, because their ability to get the things that they need to survive will potentially be limited by putting areas under protection. And they deserve to have some financial support to make that possible for their societies during a transition period to a different kind of economy that's not completely based on heavy extraction and consumption.
You also mentioned the Nature Conservancy of Canada says this 30% target is backed by 50 years of science. Can you tell us a little bit more about the scientific proof behind this 30% target?
Well, the science definitely shows that where we have areas with limited human industrial scale intervention, those areas provide clean air, clean water, food resources, pollination resources. I mean, we are all nature. We need nature to survive. So, creating some spaces where the natural world is not completely under threat allows it to adapt to climate change, allows it to continue to have healthy areas where populations can grow and thrive, and humans then can still make their living and meet their needs by acting well in the other areas outside of that.
All right, Mr. Richlin, a little over a minute left here, but in recent news, we know the PM has announced $800 million to fund Indigenous-led conservation projects across the country. Can you tell us a little bit more about what we know so far about this initiative?
I think it's an incredible announcement. It's new to many of us today. We have confirmed that the 800 million is new money from the federal government. They're looking for matching funds from other parts of civil society and from private sector. But the nations are going to have a lot of say in how this looks going forward. So I think a lot of the details are going to come from the Indigenous communities themselves. But I can say that we think this is a very positive sign.
And is there anything that you're keeping your eyes on as this conference continues?
Yeah, absolutely. The way we work outside that 30% protected area is imperative to get that right. We need halting nature loss and reversing it to be in the commitments, and we need to deal with things like plastics, pesticides, and pollution, as well as just cutting down nature. And we've got to remember that the ocean is also part of the natural world. So land and ocean need the protection.
Lots to keep our eyes on. Mr. Richland, thank you again for joining us today on Forum Daily.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.